Hey everybody, in this episode of Coffee with Chad, we are going to cover Flat Earth, Mars, and maybe a couple other controversial topics. So let's get going. Well, I'm Chad Taylor, author of this book, Where Are We, Earth According to the Bible? That's probably how most of you guys know me. Today we're going to be covering a few different things, and it wouldn't be Coffee with Chad without having some coffee. And I don't know about you guys, but I got a nice brew right here with Montana logo on it. It was a gift a while back. So cheers this morning to all you guys having some coffee. It's got a nice coffee flavor to it. I'm certainly not a coffee snob, but let's see here. So the FEIC 2018 just got over with, and there's a couple things I just want to mention too as well. Is I'm getting some great responses from the book. It's doing extremely well on Amazon. There's actually a sale on it right now. Amazon puts on a sale once in a while, depending on how much interest there is, I guess. And so right now there's a sale on it, and just it hit number 4 on the bestseller rankings. So I thought that was pretty cool, and that's at least the one that I saw. You know, it might have been higher than that. It was number 4. The highest I've seen it in the last, since it came out in December, was number 12. So it's at number 4. I think just this morning is number 7. That's pretty cool, you know. So I appreciate being there. Nate, how you doing this morning? And Marla, I see you on here as well. Well, let's see here. So this is the Chad Taylor, the Coffee with Chad podcast. So, but I'm also doing this live on YouTube and Facebook, but also the podcast. I'm going to have probably a dozen episodes or so, approximately, before I, have the official podcast. I'll probably have an app also, looking into doing that for the podcast. And so I'm going to do my best as far as describing anything that I have on screen here for those of you guys listening. Should be helpful that way. So, I just occasionally my wife will text me different articles that she sees online, and she texted me one just a few minutes ago. I just kind of want to share this here so what we're looking at, and I'll explain this, is from Wired.com. This is NASA will land InSight on Mars with cunning and lots of cork. And so those of you guys watching can see the ad here. So it's just came out 11/23. So it came out today, this morning, and there's really no way to rehearse landing on Mars. You can simulate it, sure, but the most valuable lessons are learned during actual attempts. When things go blah, blah, blah. I mean, it will attempt its 8th, on Monday, November 26th. So this coming Monday, it will attempt its 8th when it endeavors to land the $830 million InSight spacecraft on some made-up place north of the made-up place. So it's pretty, I don't know. I mean, and then the CGI is just obviously fake. Obviously, I mean, they're not going to tell you this is a real image. But I'm not kidding. I could Photoshop something better than this. Just super duper fake. But they're not saying this is a real image. I get that. But this whole thing is just ludicrous. There is no place to land a spacecraft on. There is no place to have a rover on. They're out in some desert somewhere, where other people aren't allowed to go, and they're filming. It's ludicrous. This is all totally fake, made up. Look at that. You could say almost $1 billion, getting close to $1 billion to land an $830 million spacecraft. And it's some people, I had a lot of conversations in Denver with people about this. They're like, oh, they're wasting so much money. It's like, well, to them, it's not a waste of money. To them, this is completely, utterly to deceive us. So it's not to them, it's not, to us, it's an absolute huge waste of money. You might as well go outside and burn it. But to them, there is a means for this. There is a reason for all of this, and it is to convince us and keep us convinced that there is some kind of a red planet out there to land stuff on. And that thing that we see up in the sky is some planet. And a lot of people have a hard time getting over this, where yeah, you look up in the sky and you can use an app on your phone and you can track that, oh yeah, that's Mars right there. I saw it go by last night. No, you saw something bright in the sky go across the sky. That's what you saw. And they're telling you what it is. And a lot of you guys listening to this are probably, in agreement with me, but there's a lot of people that are going to listen to this doesn't make sense to them. But, there is no planet to land stuff on. This is complete nonsense. And so Monday, there's going to be more nonsense that we're going to see, about this. And so to me, it's always, they're never going to have, I don't think they'll ever fake an actual mission to Mars, because I think with all of us and all the technology we have, I think we'll be able to pick up on, some any glitches, like they have the bubbles in space. And I talked to somebody else the other day. They found a fly on a spacecraft, supposedly out in space. I don't think they'll ever try to quote unquote fake landing people on Mars, because there's going to be issue after issue after issue before what I see is kind of logically it would make sense that there's some kind of a space event that happens that will kind of get everybody, just like 9/11, how 9/11, this major event happened, and all of a sudden we're all hoorah, we're all in this together, we're all going to go fight these bad guys. Saudi Arabians did this, we're going to go attack Saddam Hussein in Iraq. And so it's this thing that unites people. And so I just see some kind of a space event thing happen. I don't know what it's going to be. I hope I'm wrong. I want this subject to continue to grow. And just continue to grow and grow and grow until people go, yeah, this is total nonsense. This is garbage, the kind of stuff that we're getting. Hopefully that's the case. I really, really hope that's the case. But more and more people are waking up right now, and it's such a beautiful thing. And I just feel like we're in a time where it's like God's grace, where he's allowing us to come to understanding and come to know all these things. And how right now, I'm broadcasting and this is going out on the internet, and people from, all over the earth can see this and hear this. It's such an amazing time, and that anybody can pull out their iPhone and stream, onto the internet and share things. It's such a amazing time where truth is getting out there. And so hopefully it just continues to go for a long time. I really pray that that's the case. And so moving on. What's interesting, this is off the topic here, the changing course here. So I was strolling through Facebook the other day. I try to not get caught up in a lot of Facebook stuff, especially the back and forth, banterings of things. But I saw some article about, being delivered from martial arts. And it was something to that effect, where it was like this person anyway had this article where it was like martial arts is some kind of major sin of some point. So to me, my background is I really, really enjoy Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I started training back in my early 20s. I'm in my mid 30s now, and off and on, more off than on, but it's something I really enjoy. And to me, when I see something like that, I think that's kind of a really blanket statement. And now first of all, what is defined as a martial art? I guess that would be one big question. Is there certain ones that are and certain ones that aren't? Is boxing a martial art? I would assume jiu-jitsu would be in there. Is kickboxing, kung fu, and all those and so forth. So what is defined as a martial art, I guess, would be one question that I have. And so to me, I would assume that it would almost be all those. Is wrestling a martial art? Is arm wrestling a martial art? Where does this end? And so to me, I see that, and in training jiu-jitsu, I've trained with tons of different cops, different police, military people. Anybody that does military and law enforcement, they learn some kind of small joint manipulation. They learned different basic grappling techniques based on jiu-jitsu. And so therefore, does the cop that learns some kind of grappling need to go be delivered from his his grappling? It was such a silly statement. My thing is, I don't know if this is an actual thing. Have you guys heard of this before? This is the first I've heard of it, and to me, it's just kind of ludicrous. Think of it this way: how does this person know that a gal, let's say a gal is stirred up to start training, going down to some local place just to learn some kind of basic self-defense stuff, aka martial arts, whether it's a little bit of grappling technique. There's a lot of moves in jiu-jitsu, especially where, say, if a dude's on top of you, there's ways that you can get out from under the person. And so there's a lot of rape, self-defense and jiu-jitsu and different classes that are just specifically for women about how to get out of certain events. And how do you know that some gal isn't stirred up to learn certain things because God knows that 2 years from now, she's going to need it to get out of this bad situation? All of a sudden, some guy is trying to grab her kid in a parking lot, and she's able to do a couple things real quick, throw him off guard, and get out of there. How do you know that? And so we don't know those kinds of things. And so for certainly, long time ago, I did want to start fighting, MMA stuff. And I think that's more along the lines of what this person was getting to was, he doesn't want us beating the crap out of each other. Well, to me, it's like going to have to be delivered from shooting guns, because apparently if you're out shooting guns, you're training to go kill people. And it's just a ludicrous statement. And so to me, I thought this was kind of a ludicrous blanket statement about all martial arts. And to me, it's like, well, what does God want you to be doing? And I don't think, to me, it was training, jiu-jitsu and I guess you could say MMA stuff, even though I've never fought in a ring before. To me, in my early 20s, it helped grow confidence. It helped me back then be able to, stand up straighter, look people in the eyes more. And so to me, God used that as a stepping stone along the way. And I see that with a lot of people. Look up something called Bully Proof, with the Gracies and what that does for little kids. And I think we need to rely on God more than I know we need to rely on Him more than we rely on our strength. That's one thing that I've certainly learned over the years, that I was relying on my own understandings, my own strengths, and my own abilities more than Him. And so switching that, but these blanket statements, I think, are pretty ludicrous. So, and speaking of martial arts, actually, before we move on, were we able to get a sponsor for this one too? Because I know that one Tuesday was a little interesting. We're still waiting on payment for that, by the way, because the curvature of the earth doesn't pay very well. They won't get back to me, so. Let's see. Who do we have for today? Oh, that's not it. Let's see here. There it is.
Well, hey kids, you looking for a fun game to play with you and your friends? Well, enjoy this exciting game of Chemical Trail Tic-Tac-Toe. Yes, you heard me right. Chemical Trail Tic-Tac-Toe. Don't let those straight lines in the sky go to waste. Or you just sit on back and play Chemical Trail Tic-Tac-Toe. It's the latest and greatest thing.
Look, Mommy, I got 14 in a row.
How did we get Chemical Trail Tic-Tac-Toe to sponsor us? Interesting. Anyway, let's see here. So the other day I watched a movie called Mile 22 with Mark Wahlberg. And this is coming out of this, the whole martial arts thing. Now, Mark Wahlberg, as far as Hollywood people are concerned, he seems like a pretty legit dude, a hardworking guy. He's in a ton of movies. Seems like more of a Christian background. If you guys have seen I think it's called the Wahlbergs or Wahlburgers or something like that, that TV show. Seemed like a really nice family. Seems like a really good family. Never met him, but like the movie Shooter is one of my favorite movies. It's really far-fetched. That's where a lot of people out there that do like to shoot guns get the whole effect of having to account for the curve and spin of the earth and that kind of nonsense. But it seems like a decent movie. But this show, Mile 22, I just saw it the other day. Let me pull it up here so you guys kind of see this. Those of you guys watching at least will see this, but so the Mile 22 movie. Images, here we go. okay, I saw an ad for it, and I was like, wow, this looks like a pretty cool show. And I watched it the other night. It was just ridiculous. It was so far fetched. And to me, I think when we watch movies and we see what the world is trying to tell us, and so I have a hard time when I watch shows and watch TV and watch a movie. I don't watch a lot of TV, but say if I watch a movie, what are they trying to tell me? Because it used to be they had movies that were just enjoyable to watch, and there was some programming stuff that you could catch on to, but for the most part, it was just like enjoyable stuff. And anymore, it's like there's always this underlying theme they're trying to get across, whether it's a racist theme or a sexist theme or whatever. To me, it's like this dividing and conquering in movies, and this is no different to me. So they have. I'll blow this. I'll spoil this for you because it was a terrible movie, I thought. So Mark Wahlberg, he's apparently some super tough, badass kind of guy, where he's so tough that he has to rely on a rubber band to soothe him and whatever. It's just ridiculous. And then they have these women in here that are these warrior women, like Ronda Rousey's in this show, and they're like way tougher than this dude is. And this theme of in this tradition where we are in the world today of men and women are equal. No, they're not. Men and women are not equal. And oh wow, what an un-PC statement that is. When it comes to physical strength, men and women are not on the same page. Yet we see this constantly. And let me make this even more clear. So let's say if we're out, let's say somebody stumbles across a skeleton, been out in the woods for 10 years or something. They can tell if that's a man or a woman. They can go, oh, yes, judging from the skeletal structure, this is a woman. This, or a man or whatever. They can tell. It's a woman, early 20s, or it's a dude from his late 30s, approximately. Men and women are made different. We are completely different. And so when it comes to, I'm talking physical side. Now, a lot of people will take that as, oh, less important or anything like that. It's like, no. We're all extremely important. Men and women are both extremely important. It's not about some being better or worse than the other. It's just that we are not equal. And when it comes to one point, the one point I want to talk about is the physical aspect. I don't see how it's an argument, how you can argue and say, no, we're all equal. And so what I see is these, in movies especially, how they're trying to push this. You'll see this all the time where the men is this weak, just kind of uncontrolled, wimpy, and then the woman is like this super, tough Rambo woman. When in reality, it's just not the case. It's like the notion of women in the military, and that's kind of a big thing nowadays. Well, they had to drop the requirements. So if the standard for a dude is at a certain level, well, they had to drop all the requirements, and then that also. Man, there's so many issues with that. And you can see people, I don't have no military background, so I have no stance on the subject from experience. But I've heard enough dudes that are in the military that bring up really good points as far as the kind of things that this does to them. So it's like my wife loves me very much, but I don't think she could carry me 5 miles if my life depended on it. And, and anyway, it's just, anyway, so... Like with this Ronda Rousey gal I think most people know who she is, former UFC fighter. For who she is, she's one of the best female fighters in the world. But if you take her and put her against an average MMA dude, she's going to get rocked. There's no way around it. I know when I first started training jiu-jitsu, a dude named Matty, he's a friend of mine. Didn't know who he was back then. 135 pounds dude. And this Ronda gal, she is certainly more technical. She certainly knows more than my friend Maddie. But I would stand a better chance with her than I would with my friend Maddie because he's a dude. And dudes are stronger than women, even though, he's smaller than she is. But anyway, I just don't see this. I don't see where this is coming from. And then this whole notion of, if you look, there's some other MMA fighters out there that they're dudes they say that they've had a sex change. I think that's a oxymoron, personally. So there's dudes fighting in women's MMA and just beating the crap out of these women. And so I think, God has his order of things. And I don't see, biblically speaking, I could be completely wrong. Some of you guys watching this, like Nate, for instance, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm totally open to correction. I can't think of a single instance where it calls women to go fighting. I can't think of a single time. I mean, it's always men of fighting age, being called to go out and go do the warrior stuff, go do the brutal stuff that, they can do. And it's dangerous. And this whole feminist stuff is giving women, especially the young gals that are growing up in this stuff, a false reality. And they're walking around thinking that I'm equal to these dudes out here. It's physically, you're not. You don't lie to yourself. Physically, you are not equal. The average woman does not stand a chance against the average guy one-on-one. It doesn't work that way. Not a chance. And so when there's women walking out with this false sense of reality and they put themselves in a bad situation with all of this PC nonsense garbage, it's dangerous. I have a daughter. I don't want her thinking that she can be equal physically to a dude. And so that's just the difference. That I'm glad the whole notion of, physically not being equal to, and I'm glad, because I don't want to be married to a dude, it'd be kind of gay. My wife is awesome. She totally compliments me. And so everything that I'm lacking on, she's supportive of, and, she's better at. And so it just, this cohesiveness and understanding our roles as men and women and husbands and wives, and how to, honor your wife and honor your husband. And so just the roles. And so right now what I see is just this changing of roles and trying to flip the roles. And so I just see this, just the weakness of a lot of men nowadays. And, men in general just need to step up and do the role you're supposed to be doing, and then pass it on to our kids. And there's so many traits that I see, and I just picture what the world is offering and what the world is embracing is almost always opposite of what God wants for us. Like, think of what are some things that are growing in the world today that are what God wants for us. Obviously, understanding his creation is a big one, and I think that's amazing. But just general traits that the world embraces, it's flip-flopping. And so you have, women that if they have to go to a work, or if they have to cook a meal for their family, then all of a sudden they're in bondage. It's this whole political correctness is silly to me. But I just want to talk about that, the physical aspect, that there is a difference between men and women. You can go to some place, I meant to say this beforehand, but if you guys have kids listening to, you might want to, filter or whatever. But, you can go to the, get some cosmetic surgery, get things removed or things added. You're still a dude or you're still a woman. It plain and simple. So I don't buy into the whole PC nonsense. I'm okay at offending people. I'm okay with that. I'd rather speak the truth. And let the cards fall where they may. So with that, it is dad joke time.
Funny dad joke time.
All right. Dad joke of the day. To the man in the wheelchair that stole my camouflage jacket. You can hide, but you can't run. All right. I hope I came across right with that, with what I meant. Because I mean that, we are the way God made us, and trying to play a different role is dangerous. Especially something like gender and changing and trying to be something you're not. I would make a terrible woman. I'm not a woman, That's not how I'm made. So hopefully that I came across right. I'm not bashing women by any means, but that's just one subject I wanted to stay on. So let's see. And so biblically like this, 1 Peter 3:7, likewise husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way, showing honor to the woman as the weaker vessel, since they are heirs with you of the grace of life, so that your prayers may not be hindered. And I just think that's what we're lacking today, is that in general is the honoring each other and uplifting each other. And, I would not be where I'm at today without my wife, and how supportive she is of me, and the things that she gets behind me and is just so extremely helpful. And just honoring each other and respecting each other and uplifting each other and talking good to our kids about each other. My wife doesn't badmouth me to my kids. Say if she's mad at me for something, she doesn't go spread that, her, whatever it is, if she's upset that I didn't put the dishes away. She doesn't go badmouth me to my kids. And we uplift each other and we speak highly of each other to our kids, because we're raising adults that are going through childhood. So let's see here. Yeah. God made us man and woman. We made ourselves confused. That was a little note that I wanted to mention there. And there's also certainly a spiritual aspect to this, without a doubt. All right. We are coming up on 30 minutes. I'm going to jump to a couple, if there's any comments or questions. Wow, a lot of people jumping on here commenting. Did I strike a nerve on the topics today? Because the whole sex change thing, which, like I said, I think is an oxymoron. I don't think it exists. I don't think you can really do that. You can convince yourself that's a thing. Let's see here. Wow, has a nice male skull. That's right. All right, an attack created or yep. There are always exceptions. The average woman. Yeah. That's a great point, Nate. There are certainly exceptions, and I think just like the notion of abortion, for instance, where a lot of people will go to the extreme of, well, what if a 13-year-old girl was raped by her great-grandpa, and they'll jump to super extremes, to justify something. And so to me, it's like with the whole sex change thing or any of these fringe topics, it's always like jumping to an extreme to justify the whole. And so, for instance, like in the women in the military, I'm glad you mentioned that, Nate. Sure, there could be a woman that is like super awesome, super Rambo, but it is the exception, and so to justify, hey, we need to allow women to do these certain things, well, just no, you're opening a can of worms. And so think of women in the military is the average, I read an article about 125 pounds, okay, with dudes. And so the dudes that she's serving with, let's say she's in a group of 12 dudes. Well, then do they have to set her? How does that work when they're off camping? Not camping, you know what I mean? Off doing their thing, doing their military stuff. Okay, dudes tend to think with a different head than this one, usually. And so what's going to happen when they're off in the woods, doing what they're doing? Or what could happen? And you're just opening up things to that. And so, and to me, it's like they'd come with the woman as in, either the little sister thing where they're always out to protect her, which could certainly change what they're required to do. Let's say if they're required to go accomplish this mission, take out these dudes, and then tend to the wounded. Well, what happens if this gal that's serving with them gets wounded all of a sudden? Do they all of a sudden, their protocol go out the window and they try to do this and wind up getting more people killed? And it's not the woman's fault. It's the dude that's what you think. The nurturing guy wants to go help the little sister, or there's the girlfriend thing, or does she have to have different bathrooms, and how does that work if they're off in the Tulis of Afghanistan? I mean, I just think you open up a can of worms. Then you can look at Israel, and how women in Israel serve. Well, to me, I don't know the numbers to know anything, and who am I to even discuss this topic, really? But if my whole house was surrounded by people that wanted to kill me, and everyone in this house, you darn well better believe anybody that could defend this house would be. Man, woman, child, doesn't matter, And so Israel is surrounded by countries that want to destroy them. So it makes sense if the numbers aren't there where they have to have women serve, to have the appropriate numbers to defend themselves. I get it. In this country with technology, I don't think women have to just because of numbers. I don't think there's some kind of a lack there. It's a political correct stuff that is, allowing this or driving this. And I just don't see how it's necessary whatsoever. I don't want my daughter going off serving, in the military off in Afghanistan or anything like that. Not at all. It's not necessary. So, all right. Hopefully this is coming across right. Let's see. What's funny too is it's occasionally my wife will go, Chad, we're not in Montana anymore. It's kind of funny. All right. Let's see. Thanks all you guys for jumping on here. And I think, it's 8:07. Yep. So we are, I better shut this off here. Thank you for your time. Hopefully I come across right and you can read my heart. Yeah, I might have been a little rough with certain things, but I think you can read where I'm coming from, hopefully, that it's just understanding God made us men and women different. And in many ways, I'm just kind of focused on the physical side here. All right. Well, guys, thank you for tuning in to Coffee with Chad. I'll be back on Tuesday, and you guys have a great rest of your day.